What is that? It is the prince. He is coming.
Hello, and welcome to our Halloween stream. I had no idea how Halloween themed some of the readings are. I've done a couple of Halloween themed readings, so if you want to check those out, those are back in the backlog. But for me, at least, I will be reading a couple of sections from my upcoming novel, Lord of the Dragons, but that will be for the end of the stream, so stay to the end for that. But first, I must do the much needed welcoming of my guests. Please welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome, Neph. And please welcome.
Да здравствует революция!
Welcome.
Only the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Good to be
And
back.
we have, yep, it's glad to have you. And we have one last guest to bring in.
Greetings.
Welcome, Count.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yep. Thank you, my lady. And
Always
double
a pleasure.
thank you, Lord Commander chap.
I'm always pleased to be of service. Alrighty. So the order will go thusly. Neph, then Carl, then Valerian, then myself. That's
good.
how it's going to be.
Okay, I may be AFK around 4 something ish. Sorry.
Oh, if you need to go first, that's fine. We can do that. That and go.
Or I could go second, but
Yeah, you can.
probably not third or fourth. Probably third. Probably in the third place. I'll probably still be AFK, or at least ish.
Okay.
Let's make it first. Just make
Yeah.
sure we get you.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, you go first. It's totally fine.
And I've
Sorry.
decided I'm going to finish reading the chapter that I was reading. And then next week, I'm probably going to go back to the other thing that I've been reading, since I now have enough to make it actually worthwhile.
Cool.
Excellent.
So let me see. Here's a short paragraph from my novel. Okay. Margaret had rarely visited Lake Egelom, despite its relative proximity. The Calamans generally avoided it, and only partly because it was right on the border of Nuen, and therefore unsafe. The lake itself was more than intimidating enough. It was large, deep, and dark, and the weather was unpredictable at best. There were sharks and, it was rumored, crocodiles. The dolphins were said to be friendly, but still. To the north was a roaring waterfall, which the Mel called the Song of the Lake Spirit, and which the Calamans associated with the monster fish. Legend had it that the monster fish, or Achne, dwelt at the bottom of the lake, awaiting its prey in the company of a retinue of giant worms, and that the waterfall was caused by the fish's rage against Sacred Nine for having confined it to the lake in punishment for its sins. Margaret had heard many tales of the monster fish, each nastier than the last. She still half believed them, especially on a brooding day like today, but she told herself not to be silly. Barama had the better attitude. He couldn't stop raving about how exciting it had been to meet real barbarians. Hello, whoever that was. Okay, so that's actually that for the novel, but I'm going to move on to the parody now, if you don't mind.
Okay.
This is loosely based upon the Sword of Shannara. It's something I did several years ago. Let's see.
The show on this show, the books, because the
Books,
show was bad. The show was bad.
Yeah, the books. I don't think that. I'm not sure if if the show existed back then. The show came out like, I'm not sure. Like when did the show come out?
Like 2015-ish, 2016.
Yeah. That would have been. Yeah, that would have been like when I wrote this. It was like 12 years earlier than that.
Okay, that works.
So,
Well, continue. I'm intrigued to see what you do with this.
This is chapter 9. Ew! That's the title. This place is very dangerous, said the druid. Well, duh, remarked Bozo. Blood and ooze streaked from the jaws of the front door, and above it the words, Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Rotting corpses littered the front stairs, and a crow crew 3 times the word blood. The blood was thick and slippery and red and kind of off-putting. We're all gonna die, yelled Fred. Nah, said Bozo. Only 1 or 2 of us. Although some disgusting monster or other should be attacking us about now. They entered the library and immediately were set upon by a monster so revolting that they all vomited, except for Fred and Levelinda, who passed out. It had enormous tentacles equipped with suction cups that were leaking the brains of its prey, enormous mandibles chewing at their guts and smoking their pancreases like a cigar, antennae that oozed venomous green slime, an enormous maw that regurgitated vital organs, 200 skeleton-like legs, the works. Show it your IDs, yelled the druid. They did, and it paused to let them in. Then it attacked again, its antennae twitching, its mandibles foaming, etc., etc. It seized the dwarf, chewing him slowly and with great relish while he still lived. Blah, 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 before spitting him out. Then the druid threw a paper airplane at it and killed it. Ho, 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 said Bluff. The dwarf is dead. I won't miss the bleep, said Bombador. Whatever, gasped the dying dwarf. Whatever, said the druid. Whatever, said Bombador. Ho, whatever, said Bluff. Whatever, said Anison. Whatever, said Excedrin. Whatever, said Levelinda. Whatever, said Fred. Whatever, said the monster. Even I'm getting sick of that word, said Bozo. Anyway, haven't these funeral obsequies gone on for long enough? They have, said Waffleon. Let us continue on our way. They spent a lot of time wandering through dank, musty passageways, trying not to slip on the blood. They picked up keys and potions and experience points on the way, but apart from the occasional were-rat, not an awful lot happened. The druids used to hang out here a lot, pretending to study their low, before Batty invaded the place, blaring rap from a boombox, and put them all to a gruesome death, said Waffleon cheerfully. He then proceeded to a minute description of the precise way in which each of the druids had died. "This is getting a bit gratuitous," said Bozo in between retches. Eventually they came to an ancient door. Let's see. "Sauron's diary is behind that door," said the druid, "but we can rest before going in there. That's going to be a seriously dangerous thing." As they rested, Fred said, "This place gives me the creeps." "You're about to do something stupid like breaking in there by yourself," said Bozo. "You really shouldn't, of course, but the narrative requires that you do so." "Okay," said Fred. He banged on the door and yelled, "Honey, I'm home." "Shut up, you idiot," hissed the druid. "Bozo told me to," whined Fred. Wulflon glared at Bozo, but the latter just shrugged. Okay, chapter 10. Half a second. I need to click on it. Chapter 10. This part is scary. A mummy opened the door. "Did someone call?" it inquired. We're in for it now, whined Bombador. "Grr," said the mummy. Bozo threw a couple of elf-stony things at it. "Boo-hoo," said the mummy. "I'm telling." They went inside and were instantly attacked by hordes of mummies. These guys weren't playing around either. They meant business. They had been kept there by some magic hoodoo thingy in order to protect Sauron's diary from the throngs of people who would otherwise have gotten hold of it and used it for evil purposes, such as basing appallingly bad TV shows on it. And this is long before Game of Thrones came out. The mummies attacked viciously. Aniston screamed. Fred fainted. Bozo forgot to say anything sarcastic. "Abracadabra," said the druid. The monsters paused. Wulflon pulled a rabbit out of a hat. The monsters fled in terror. The druid collapsed, but no one paid much attention, as they were more concerned with a giant clam that kept opening and shutting its mouth. It was in the middle of the room. It was scary. Within its maw, they saw a book. This was the last and most terrible guardian of Sauron's diary. "Bummer," said Fred. "Use your sword, silly," said Bozo. "This is the bit where you redeem it yourself." "Huh," said Fred. "I did what you said last time, and it didn't work." "You don't get it, do you?" snapped Bozo. "Just do it already." "Fine," said Fred, "but I'll haunt you if I die." "Yeah, right," grunted Bozo. Fred attacked the clam and killed it. Bozo lifted the book and removed it from the monster's claw. "I love the illustrations," said Fred. "Now it's my turn to do something stupid and redeem us." "And redeem myself," said Bozo. "Hey, bad guys, come and get us." Bombador growled. "What purpose do you two serve anyway?" "We're the protagonists," retorted Bozo. "Deal with it." A bunch of nasties attacked. "Boo," they said. "Eek," said everyone. "Whatever," said Bozo, throwing some elfstone thingammies at the monsters. "Yikes," said the monsters and ran away. Oh, come on. "Whoa, way cool," said everybody. Okay, I don't know if you want a third chapter or not.
Whatever you choose. We have
whatever you like.
bit of
It's
time.
been funny.
You
You
have time
can't
for
hear me because I'm muted, but
Okay, good. Okay, good. I'm going to skip ahead to chapter 14, which is Eek. That's the title. This is long afterwards. They're heading towards the evil kingdom, or whatever it's called. Meanwhile, Bozo and Lovelinda got captured by some annoying picaresque guy named Scuzzbag, who stole the magic stone things Bozo was carrying in his pocket. A nasty attacked him. "Give me the stones back," said Bozo. "No," said Scuzz. "Then we'll get killed." "Which would actually make an interesting plot twist," said Bozo. "Nyah," said the nasty. "Fine," said Scuzz, giving Bozo the stones. Bozo threw them at the nasty, and the nasty ran away crying. "What exactly is your function in the story anyway?" inquired Bozo of Scuzz. "I don't know," replied Scuzz. Then go away," said Bozo. Scuzz did so. My hero, said Levelinda. They continued on their way. Sonic the Hedgehog lusted after Sauron's diary. And if that sounds sick, it is. The animal listened with wild pangs of... Okay, never mind that bit. They reached the corpse kingdom, the really nasty place. It was dark and scary, full of nasties, monsters, and insurance agents that hovered overhead. The ghostly trio swooped by, yelling boo. Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and worst of all, Lucky the Leprechaun tried to force them to eat sugary breakfast cereals. I'm scared, said Lovelinda. My special seer powers that I didn't tell you about inform me that evil things are nearby. Don't worry, said Bozo. The fact that they're so obviously in-your-face evil proves that they'll lose. So all these vampire skeletons that are trying to seize you with claws of steel, really plastic, are actually a good sign. If you say so, signed Levelinda. And I think that will do. Don't worry, it has a happy ending, needless to say.
Well, I approve of the very seasonally appropriate inclusion of Count Chocula and Frankenberry and, worst of all, that leprechaun thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary. Yes, that haunts my worst nightmares.
Got me quaking in my boots right here.
That's the spirit.
Well, I
And of
like the
course-
parody. It was funny. It was a little bit scary, but also very funny.
Well, I had to make it just scary enough to be. I had to make it a little. I had to make it a little over the top in some places.
About evil. Not your garden variety, just nasty stuff or unpleasant. It's That's how you know it's serious.
I should get you to read this story. You should have read this story, not me.
Well, I'm available for cold readings if anyone wants to try. Actually, just hit me up on the Discord server. I will whore myself out for free in this regard.
I have. I could always post a link to it or something.
Oh, sure. All right, and I guess is that me up next then?
Or is it me?
You could always fight it out. Where is everybody anyway? I don't see anyone.
Lord Captain, are you do you have control of your faculties?
Did the captain die?
Oh, I do.
He
Sorry.
seems.
Sorry.
Oh,
I was
there
muted.
you are.
Sorry, I was muted. And I forgot to unmute myself because my microphone has a mic setting. So, yeah. Whichever. I think that. So I guess like who has less time? I guess so.
You said yours is longer than mine. I think mine's 1.4K.
Yeah.
And I've decided that what I have is not even 0.6K.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Whichever. I guess we could go ladies first. I'm okay with that.
I'll take
All
that.
right. So, this is Hero's Spirit, which I was reading last week, and they are on Lon Lon Ranch. Kazada, his mother, called up the stairs several days later. Asnataz here, what are you doing? Kazada turned his head, barely hearing his mother's voice over the shower. He'd hoped to have a little more time to clean up after trying again to play as a Gerudo. That the sticky, clammy feeling was hard to get rid of. Not to mention the fact that he'd scared Epona Really, he didn't think that he'd need to play it again, now that he'd figured out which playstyle worked best with it. His Gerudo Traveler could now safely be discarded. I'll be there in a minute, Kazuto called down to his mother as he held the shower head over his hair. The feeling he got from playing a Gerudo wasn't quite gone yet, but Asuna was here, and to make her wait was just rude. He turned off the scorching hot water and dried off as best he could before slipping into his usual clothes. Then he left the bathroom and headed downstairs. Hey, Asuna, he called, with a grin when he saw his best friend. Hey, Kazuka. Asuna leaned in to look up at him. Why were you in the shower? Cleaning up after playing the beta version of the first MMO on the Ogma. Kazuto replied. Let's go riding. I'll tell you more. I'll tell you more about it. Asuna nodded. It's a good thing I brought my riding boots then, she agreed happily. Kazuto chuckled as he pulled her out the door. We'll be back for dinner, Mom. Be careful, you two, Aoi called back. And take Twilight with you. We will, Mom, Kazuto called back. So, what's up, Kazu? Asuna asked once they'd gotten on their way. Something seems to be bothering you. You could say that, Kazuto agreed, fiddling with Twilight's leash. It's this new game I'm testing out. What about this game? Asuna asked. What's the game called again? Hyrule Online? Yes, that's what it's called. Kazuto grimaced as Twilight stood on his hind feet and rested his front paws against Epona's flank and whined. Kazuto smiled as he stroked Twilight's thick black fur. There's something familiar about Hyrule Online, he said finally. Everything about it, actually. So everything seems familiar in some way? Asuna asked. Yeah, and not only do I not understand it, but I don't like it either, Kazuto growled, sounding not unlike Twilight for a moment. Is the game fun, though? Asuna asked curiously as Solaris brought her closer to Epona so his rider could lay a hand on Kazuto's shoulder. It is, but the sense of familiarity. Kazuto paused, trying to put his feelings into the right words. There's something about it that just screams a warning. A warning? Asuna asked in confusion. What kind of warning? Kazuto bit his lip and didn't meet his best friend's eyes for a long moment. I don't know yet, he replied quietly, but I will figure it out. Good, because I'm planning to play with you for once, Asuna told him with a grin. Then she turned Solaris around and rode back towards the sheep herd. Kazuto watched his best friend get back to work, a blush blooming on his cheeks. And that's the last of that chapter.
Dang, this is going to be relatively quick.
Yeah. I told you I didn't even have 0.6k to work with.
Oh yeah, that was quick. Good though, and don't do it, Asuna or whatever her name is. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Well, yeah, but there would be no story if they didn't do it anyway.
Oh, authors are such tyrants.
Yeah.
Yes, we are, aren't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are. We enjoy making our characters suffer.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
going to burn in a very special level of hell. A level they reserve for child molesters and people who talk at the theater.
We are. We are indeed.
Well,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to be birding along with you. My quote book has made sure of that.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a text page with all my character information for my main novel, and there's one character who I've written in the margins. Enjoy your art while you can.
Yeah. I
Oh,
I have a book of quotes from like living from my mission, because missionaries say the funniest things just because they need to, because otherwise the stress is going to get to them. Because we're out there for 2 years, we can't do any of the things we normally do, so we have to use humor. And one of the thing was, like, I just made a ton of bad, dirty jokes. And one of my companions said, anybody who gets into that book is going to go to hell. Needless to say, I put him in the book.
Yep.
Book of
Yeah.
Evil.
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
basically stuff like
Right, regular Necronomicon.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to read it out on stream sometime. I know one of, like, there's a little section of it that's bad Mormon pickup lines. And so we made up one time. That was
I
very,
remember a
very
couple.
funny.
There were a couple early on a stream.
Yeah. I'll read it out sometime. That'll be like a hangout stream thing. But anyway,
Nice.
Carl, I believe it is your turn.
All right. This is a little piece that I wrote as an intro. Probably an aborted piece for one of the JordanCon writing workshops, which was canceled, and I decided to rework it into a different property. But I've kept this draft, and it's always stuck with me. So here it is: Witch's Brew Incorporated. It was 7 in the evening when the clock tower bells in Hecate Square broke the silence on the factory floor. Bronwyn kept her focus on the sigils she was presently carving into the cheap quartz crystal, though she picked up her pace just a hair. She had been carefully pacing herself for the past 2 minutes, snatching glances out the window at the clock tower. This would be her last crystal of the day, and she wanted to make certain that it was done in time to beat the rush, but not so soon as to raise suspicion with Glennis and Deleth, the floor managers. With one stroke left to go, Bronwyn looked around the factory hall. Glennis sat in her usual seat beside the door, and Deleth was escorting one of the newer work witches back to her seat after trying to leave her work half done. Bronwyn finished the sigil, set the crystal in the completed tray, and stood up. She removed her apron proudly as she crossed the floor, a symbolic end to another 14-hour workday. The fact that tomorrow was her day off put a bit of a spring in her step as well. "First again, girl," Glennis purred as Bronwyn reached the doorway. Bronwyn shrugged, innocent as a lamb. "I guess I'm just lucky like that." Glennis's one good eye swiveled up and down, trying in vain to pry out some offense to pin on the wretched little truant. "Off with you now," she said with a frown. Bronwyn flashed a devilish grin and slipped through the doorway and down the spiral stair to the ground floor. She collected her cloak, bag, and hat from the closet and stepped out into the street. As expected, Hecate Square was almost completely empty. The cobblestones gleamed brightly under the overpowering white light from the overhead starlight orbs. Bronwyn leisurely made her way along the edge of the plaza to the factory storefront, where many of the goods that she had helped manufacture were sold. She no longer looked up at the illuminated mural above the storefront, where the saccharine sweet visage of a young workwitch leaned over a cauldron with the words "Witch's Brew Incorporated" written in the smoke. Inside the store, Bronwyn rummaged through the bin of finished crystals, exactly like the ones she had carved the sigils into not 5 minutes earlier. The sigils on these crystals had been painted over with a proprietary mixture of various magical substances and exposed under concentrated moonlight to charge them, and as such they now held a soft, pale luminescence deep within their crystalline depths. After searching for a few minutes, Bronwyn finally selected one crystal in particular and brought it to the counter. 2 silvers later, the crystal was hers, and it vanished into her bag. Bronwyn fought to suppress a giggle as she waltzed out of the store. She'd carved that sigil herself 2 days earlier, and had deliberately duplicated one of the strokes. That simple error would have caused the crystal to absorb a double charge of moonlight, twice the potency for the price of one. And nobody had noticed. Nobody would ever notice. At the other side of Hecate Square, Bronwyn stopped for a moment at the top of Canal Bridge to watch the river barge passing beneath it. And not for the first time, she wished that she had been born a boy. It wasn't fair. Bronwyn and her fellow work witches were stuck here in Accra, working at the same factory with only one day to themselves each week. Those bargemen got to travel far and wide along the mighty Angara River, from the mountain quarries up in Moon Valley down to the bustling seaport at Huar, to the foreign ports of Teshin and Sheth, and everywhere in between. Bronwyn would give anything to join them. Every moment would be a new adventure. The idea of being surrounded by bare-chested young men in peak physical condition was not altogether unappealing either. It was darker on the other side of the bridge. The starlight still illuminated the streets, but the timber frame houses, tightly packed like crooked teeth in the diseased maw of a wild beast, gobbled up any stray light. The windows of the houses added little of their own light. Most people in this neighborhood kept their shutters closed to foil housebreakers. There were few people out and about at this time of night, and those few that were regarded Bronwyn with open suspicion and contempt. Bronwyn returned the favor. Bronwyn stopped at a crossroads, looked about to make sure nobody else was looking, and darted into a dark, cramped alleyway. Here there were no starlights overhead. The shadows lay thick and greedy. Bronwyn slowed her pace so as not to trip over a carelessly discarded plank or to disturb a puddle. She wasn't supposed to cut through private alleys, of course, and there would be trouble if she was caught. But this shortcut trimmed a good 20 minutes off her journey home. As Bronwyn reached the far end of the alleyway, a sudden sound of breaking glass in the street stopped her in her tracks. She stood stock still for a moment, straining her ears to pick up any sounds. Nothing. Not taking any chances, Bronwyn slipped her hand up to the hidden pocket she'd sewn into her sleeve and slipped out the small black sliver of cold iron. She continued silently onward, clutching the scrap of metal between her thumb and forefinger, yet still keeping it inside her sleeve. Cold iron disrupted magic violently, and as such it was completely forbidden in Accra. If Bronwyn was caught with it, she would almost certainly be hanged. Still, there were some things in Accra that were worth risking the gallows to avoid. After a painfully tense few minutes, Bronwyn reached the far end of the alleyway, and with great relief, she slipped the cold iron dagger back into her hidden sleeve pocket. However, no sooner had she done so than out in the street beyond, a shadowy figure sprinted around the corner and dove into the alleyway. Bronwyn didn't have nearly enough time to move aside, and the runner collided with her, sending both of them into a crumpled heap on the dirt street. "Shit!" the figure hissed. It was a boy, probably of an even age with Bronwyn, and he was out of breath. How long had he been running? Was someone chasing him? "Are you all right?" Bronwyn asked warily, getting to her feet. "Here!" the boy whispered frantically, tossing a large leather bag to Bronwyn. "Take this, quick! They catch me with it." "They?" Bronwyn blinked. "Who is—" "Just hide, quick!" the boy said, and dashed off down the alley. Bronwyn was about to continue on her way when another towering figure rounded the corner. She quickly ducked into the shadow of a crate just before the great dark mass lumbered into the alley. Bronwyn watched the thing go by, its yellow eyes piercing through the shadow, its leathery skin stretched tight and ripped at the joints, its heavy, thudding gait all too steady for any living creature. A homunculus. The once living body of a condemned prisoner, with an artificial life stuffed into its bosom to replace the one wrung out of it by a noose. It would continue to serve its new masters in the Accra Bureau of Public Order, hunting down whomever they deemed criminal until its body finally fell apart. Perhaps that was intended to be the greater part of its punishment. Bronwyn waited until the monstrosity had passed out of sight before creeping out of the shadows. She glanced down at the leather bag the boy had passed her. What had he been so desperate to hide? Slowly, she unlocked the brass clasp and opened the bag. It held a collection of broadsheet papers, a manuscript of sorts. Had the boy stolen it? How could mere words on a page be valuable enough to hide from the Bureau of Public Order? Bronwyn fished out the sheaf of papers and held the frontispiece out under our starlight to read the title. The Case for the Workers' Union. Maybe it was a new mystery novel. Maybe the boy had stolen the manuscript and was planning to run off copies on his own and sell them on the black market before the original publisher was ready to go. Well, Bronwyn was a respectable young work witch, and she was certainly not going to get mixed up in whatever sort of criminal enterprise that lad was cooking up. Besides, she had a free day tomorrow, and what better way to spend a day off than with a good book? And that's it.
Very nice indeed.
Surprise! It's communist propaganda.
That's fine.
That was intriguing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, there's something about a workers' union, and it's banned in their country, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh,
Not
yeah.
that I would expect any less, but that was very interesting.
Well, 14-hour days, 6 days a week. That'll make you question the fitness of the bourgeoisie to run the economy any day.
Yeah.
They should be re-educated then. We must take them and re-educate them and implant servile thoughts into their heads.
I like cut of this man's jib. Give him position in Cheka. Oh, yeah.
Oh, don't do that. Not you, my computer.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, I very much wanted to read this particular story. A, because I'm publishing it next week.
Congratulations.
But I kind of wanted to go into what created this book and something like that kind of came in midway through writing it. So when a while back, I was watching a bunch of these theory videos from this channel called The Order of the Green Hand, and to the 3 people watching, please go sub to their channel. They are excellent. So what happened was I kind of just watched it, and it was just like, as they were kind of just talking about like just interesting aspects of like just theories about Song of Ice and Fire, I'm just like, okay, these are some excellent ideas for like an out and out plot of a story where an outside force is trying to meddle with the royal family by making them sterile. That is an excellent idea. And
It is.
And it's actually not really in A Song of Ice and Fire, technically. It's their theory on how they think that the series has been working up to this point. So I decided to write The Young Dragonlord, kind of utilizing some aspects of that premise. And it was kind of just like a young kid and his dragon story, kind of because I like Aragon to a certain extent, but I have lots and lots of problems with it.
Yes, dragon writing is
Right.
awesome no matter what it's in.
Yeah.
Not that it will necessarily save a novel, But
Yeah.
Well, that's the sort of thing that happens when you're a 15-year-old writer.
Mhm.
I was writing some pretty embarrassing things when I was 15.
You
I wrote
may-
embarrassing
I
things.
was
about
writing
things.
embarrassing things when I was 15 too. So
Same.
And I'm
Yeah.
grateful every day that those stories have been lost to the ghosts of hard drives past.
I wrote embarrassing things in my 20s and even maybe my 30s. So,
Mm. Yeah. So, I wrote the book, and then I wrote the second book, kind of like and the second and third and fourth and fifth books all at the same time. And I managed to get finished with the second and third earlier this year, edited them, got them ready for publication, and finished it. And one of the things that I decided to do, kind of like as I was writing, like, I need to give the people who inspired me to do this some credit. So I decided to put them, David and Mary Ellen, into the book as characters, just to kind of honor like the fact that they inspired me to write this. So if you're watching this, David, Mary Ellen, this wouldn't have been possible without you. And I have
oh,
to
the
say,
green
just
hats.
yes, Order
Cool.
of the Green Hand, yes. I just have to say, like, if you're watching, thank you so much for inspiring me to write this. This series would not have been possible without you.
you could possibly put it in a forward.
Yeah,
I think that I
acknowledge it.
will. Yeah, I think that I will, for sure. But I thought that what I would do is I suppose, read the proudest moment of both characters. Admittedly, like, I couldn't think of a better way to include Dave's character. So I just made him a mercenary dragon rider with a large group of soldiers that acts as a mentor to the young protagonist. But I put more work into Marielle, since she was more plot relevant, and I actually ended up changing the name around several times. Originally it was Dana, then it was uh and then like it was, I just kind of changed the names around a lot, and I can't even remember. I think it was at least three, but I can't remember the third. And then it finally settled on Marielle after Mary Ellen, and I just have to say thank you. So this is kind
Well,
of like,
there's not much of a more honored spot than the mentor spot, even though they're going to die relatively quickly. Because the
he
mentor
should,
is important.
yeah. Well, he kind of shows up at kind of the end of the second act, I think, into the third-ish. But yeah. So, um, so this is actually going to be chapter 2
Okay.
of the story. The newly minted Lord Vergoys stood on the battlements of the Ravenforge, watching the army gather to take his newly acquired seat just outside the gates. "If you attack," he yelled down at them, "your little lordling will die." He gestured to one of his soldiers, who held up the son of the lord he'd thrown from the battlements onto the spiked moat below. The boy couldn't be more than 12, but his eyes weren't afraid despite his predicament. "He promised me help," Vargoys thought. "That damned White-Hand promised in his letter that he'd send forces to support me if I rebelled." The gold that had been sent by the spy master in the north had been sufficient for his bribes, but he needed men and dragons to hold, especially if the Dragonlords come down on us. "Release him, Vergoys," one of the men called it from him. "We do not wish to cause harm to our lord, but we will besiege you until you let Lord Jonah into our custody. And open myself to an attack? Not likely." Vergoys gestured for his soldier to take the lord back to his cell. "If you do not Are the going to be released? We will be forced to starve you out. The sudden roar of a gargantuan beast coming down from above them caused Vergois to look upward. His face instantly became ashen as a huge blue dragon swept down from the sky, a figure with long silvery hair atop his back. The dragon roared and blasted the air with a blue torrent of blue flame as wide as a river. The sudden wave of intense cold causing all men on the wall to shiver visibly. Surrender or suffer the wrath of my dragon! Princess Marielle and her dragon Thanatos landed atop a neighboring tower, the huge blue monster reaching down and snatching the prince away from his captor before bathing the poor man in a blast of azure dragon fire. The man turned to ice and shattered as if struck by a giant's fist. Thanatos, the Blue Death, grasped the young prince in his enormous claws and dropped him onto the princess's lap. Vergois has only had enough time to scream before two of his men seized him and hurled him off the walls onto the spikes below. His scream died as he hit the spikes, life fading away. Face stern, Marielle sheathed her sword and glared toward the two guards. Comfortingly, she ruffled little Jonas's hair with her six-fingered right hand as Thanatos prowled toward the guards. Open the gates, she said firmly. Jonas snuggled up against her chest, which didn't bother her unduly, but it was noticeable. Thank you for saving me, he said quietly. You're really pretty. Why, thank you, she smiled more warmly and kissed him on the forehead. That's very sweet of you. Jonas beamed up happily at her, displaying white teeth. That smile was the only handsome bit of him. His nose was bold and hooked, his eyes were murky brown. His eyes were ever so slightly too big as well. Come on, let's fly around the castle. Really? Jonas clapped his hands eagerly. Thank you, thank you. Smiling, Marielle reached forward and patted Thanatos' neck. Let's go, old friend, she called as she wrapped the passenger straps around the young lordling. The ancient blue dragon rumbled deep in his cavernous chest as he spread his wings and soared up into the sky as the besieging army moved through the gate into the fortress. Jonas laughed and chortled as they danced among the clouds, Thanatos carrying them further and further into the sky. The massive dragon moved up swiftly along the mountainside beside the castle despite his size, powerful wings propelling him upward as he turned and dropped toward the ground. Hands locked on the saddle horn, Jonas squealed with glee as they plummeted toward the ground. And drifting close but not too close toward the rocks. Just as they were about to strike the ground, Thanatos flared his wings and shot upward, flapping his wings to diminish his momentum, and slowly descended toward the courtyard. Jonas hugged her again, shaking with excitement. That was incredible! He exclaimed as Marielle strapped him and helped him down from the saddle before or following after the young lordling. Smiled, she gave him a brief hug and passed him over to one of the servants. Take Lord Jonas to his rooms. He's likely to need eat food after his ordeal. The woman bowed quickly and ushered Jonas away. The young lord smiled and waved happily over his shoulder. Marielle waves back, plastering on a smile until he was gone. Then she made her expression grimly determined. Bring those who supported Lord Vergois to me, she said quietly, and bring anybody from the dungeon with noble clothes as well. I require witnesses for the trial. The soldiers nodded and rushed away to carry out her orders. Casually, she unsheathed the silver queen from her side and rested the tip against the ground. Princess, the leader of the besiegers bowed to her, thick brown beard covering the red griffin on his chest despite his bald head. Me name be Lord Balin. Me men and I be grateful for your invaluable assistance. I accept your thanks gladly, Lord Balin. Marielle nodded respectfully to the man. We received your raven a few days ago, and I volunteered to aid in your efforts. Again, we do thank you for your help. Balin bowed again. How quickly can the conspirators be assembled before me? Mariel asked. I have a personal affair to attend to. What do you mean to do with them, milady? Balin asked cautiously. To judge them for their crimes, and grant them the just reward for their treachery. She said quietly, That's why I had Jonas sent to his room. I don't want him to witness this. Balin nodded shortly. Of course, that is, you're right. Likely it will take a few minutes. Mariel waved him away, then returned to watching the open doors of the keep proper. Soon enough, several soldiers and stewards were dragged into the courtyard to be plopped before her. A few other men wearing formerly fine clothes that had become quite stained during the time in the cells. You men conspired to murder your lord and set a usurper in his place. She did not raise her voice, but her throaty tones were clearly heard throughout the courtyard. I would hear what you had to say in response to the crimes you have committed. Please, mercy! One of the stewards, she could tell by his robes, crawled toward her. I beg you, milady, spare us. We had no choice. He would have slain all of us if we didn't help him. How true is this? She turned toward one of the stewards who had been rescued from the dungeons. Balefully, the soil man glared at his fellow steward as he cowered before Mariel. That one let the bastard Vergoys into the castle, he remarked scathingly. He was probably paid well for his treachery. Those two hurled Lord Arthur to his death from the wall tops. He indicated two more soldiers. Can you refute any of these accusations? The men remained deathly silent, all save for the man on his knees before her. He was blubbering like a babe. Sighing, Mariel motioned the three men that the loyal steward had indicated. Provide me a chopping block. As for the rest, hang them. No! The three men struggled against their captors. Please, mercy! The others began crying for mercy as well, but Mariel hardened her heart and gestured toward Balin with her six-fingered hand. Take care of the hanging. I'll behead these three myself. The Western Lord nodded in grim satisfaction and commanding his men to set up a gallows for the traitors. Still struggling, the traitorous steward and two soldiers were dragged before Mariel as a chopping block was set to the side. Before you die, she remarked as the first man as he was held down to the stump, would you speak a final word? A defeated look in his eyes, the man and shook his head and let it hang low as Mariel adjusted her cloak to give her more freedom of movement. Slowly she raised her sword with both hands and brought it down on the neck. The dragon-forged blade sheared through flesh and bone like cloth, severing the man's head from his body with a single blow. The men around her began muttering in amazement at the ease that she had sliced off the traitor's head. Next, she said peremptorily as she flexed her gloved right hand. The other two started blubbering as she rested her bloodied sword tip against the ground. Silver Queen seemed to gleam even more bright as she drank the second traitor's blood greedily. The last man to die, I was the man who had dropped to his knees before her. In the end, Mariel had the soldiers gag him before she took off his head. Casually, she pulled out a handkerchief and wiped the blade free of blood. Deliberately, she sheathed the weapon and gestured toward the bodies. Bury them with the others, she commanded, striding toward Thanatos. Lord Balin, I believe you in command of the castle. I expect a report to be sent to the Dragon Tower before the week is out. As your command, milady, Balin bowed as she mounted her dragon. I swear that we'll not let you down. I believe it. Mariel nodded and urged her dragon toward the heavens. Thanatos snarled and threw himself skyward, blue wings flapping powerfully as he soared above the ground. All right, Darian, she remarked. Now it's time to find out where you've gone. She would make a stop at Menendrakar to make a report to her father, but after that, she'd find her little brother and bring him home. And that's the end of that first section. Thoughts before I continue, while I find the next spot.
You do be showing your influence.
Yes, I do like yes, I do quite like the Illianer accent. He only shows up once in this book, so I thought, oh, why not do piratey accent for him. I thought that was.
Did you read the books or did you use the audiobooks?
I had a weird how do I say it? Journey with the books. I first listened to the first 4 audiobooks. I think like the first 3 audiobooks. Yeah, the first 4 audiobooks. And then like I didn't get Fires of Heaven for a while. So I just read the Wikipedia synopsis since I didn't really want to read them, even though my parents had them, since I liked listening to them a lot more than I liked reading them. And so like I read up to, thankfully Wikipedia at the time was very not detailed, so like they had like bare bones stuff. So I knew like some of the important events, but I didn't know that many. And then I would eventually like fully listen to the rest of the books. At least the first few were I think like 5 through 9 were rented from the library on cassette on CDs, and then 11 I would listen to that because we had, for some reason, we had 1 through 4 and then 11 on Audible. It didn't make sense to me.
I imagine it wouldn't.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's on the character of Marielle. I think that kind of like she's I think she's one of my favorite characters in terms of especially like where she starts out and where she ends. It's very much I kind of, in the end, I made her a somewhat tragic character because like she doesn't continue the bloodline. Her brother ends up carrying it down because she dies near the middle, near the I think like end of the 3rd act, end of the 2nd act, I believe. How she dies is up to you guys to find out when I release it.
Is this near the beginning or the end? I don't remember, sorry.
This is the beginning. This is her this is her entrance.
Oh, okay, good. And she starts out rather brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think Mariella might appreciate, the real Mariella might appreciate that.
Yeah, it all depends on what kind of arc you have planned for her, whether it's flat, positive, or negative.
I believe
you don't have to say, of course, that might spoil it. But depending on which direction he's going to go, it's going to depend on what ultimately gets focused on. You know, there is strength, but there's also a brutality in strength. That's the opposite side of that coin.
Yeah.
Why is she killing these chaps? I forget. Sorry, I've been AFK.
They were
traitors and they lost.
Yeah, they
were losers. Fair enough.
Yeah. Basically, what happened? This is kind of part 1 of the moves in a shadow war between these 2 kingdoms, where one side is kind of trying to undermine the other, and this guy defected to the other side in exchange for money.
Oh, in that case.
And yeah, and
have to get killed then.
Yeah, he usurped the young lord's place, put himself in charge, and decided that, okay, I'm just going to hold it and wait for help. Oh, because I need dragons. And the Dragonlord's heir came first before any reinforcements from the other side. And so and basically her little, and I tried to kind of show that like she's got like a kind streak by how she like takes Jonas away from the fighting so that he doesn't have to watch it, and just gives him a flying experience, and also like trying to be as kind as she can to him, and because he's clearly been through a lot.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Were you going to continue?
Yes. I'm trying to find the spot where I introduce this David. It's gotta be somewhere. Okay. Let me. Okay. There. Caleb pointed down toward the ground from their vantage atop Catastros. Darian followed her finger and glanced down toward the ground. The large camp was spread out over the Parthian grassland. Several black Elver silver Agenbe banners flying on the long poles lining the camp. That must be a Elsword company, Darian remarked, trying to figure out a plan. His hand automatically went to his pocket, only to find nothing. The fact that he didn't have his mother's spirit with him hurt more than having to leave his home behind. Well, we're going to need to get an army somehow, he remarked, mentally urging the dragon to descend. Gradually, Catastros tucked in his wings and started dropping through the air. The dragon and two riders touched down on far outside of bow range. Claws digging into the ground, Catastros prowled toward the camp, yellow eyes scanning the tents. Darian had seen a couple ballistas, and he wasn't about to lose his dragon on top of everything else. The lookouts yelled out and lowered their crossbows, but Darian and Caleb raised their hands in a gesture of surrender. We're peaceful! Don't make a move, one of the mercenaries frantically motioned for his fellow to head back into the camp. We'll get our captain. No problem. Darian kept his hand up. We're in no rush. In a few moments, a man with a short gold haircut and a close-trimmed beard exited the camp, looking rather annoyed. What the hell is going on here? His voice was rich, though there was a hint of raspiness around the edges. He wore a long black and gold trench coat that had seen far better days, but he had a powerful build, and his close-cropped beard gave him a rugged appearance. Rubbing his eyes, he glanced up at Kayla and Darian. Who are you, and why are you here? My name is Darian, and this is Kayla, he said quickly. We're here to join you. The sellsword captain stared at Darian, then smiled slightly. Well, how can I say no to a fellow dragon rider, he remarked, folding his arms. A sudden bellow split the air as a large silver dragon flew downward, large ivory horns sweeping backward more than Catastros' more curled horns. The slimmer body and much longer neck showed the creature was female. The dragon ended heavily on the ground, snarling at Catastros challengingly. Catastros initially retreated from the slightly larger dragon, then he gathered himself and roared back at her. The silver dragon tilted her head, then nodded. Well done, she settled down and swished her tail. You have a good set of lungs. Catastros bristled and growled at her, which made the female dragon laugh. The sellsword leader smirked slightly. So, Darian, you want to join us, he remarked. Good thing, too. We might have an opening. You're making it difficult, so I need to prove myself, aren't you? Darian said flatly. Maybe, the sellsword remarked, stroking his chin with an index finger. I have to admit, having another dragon rider will allow us to raise our prices. But we still have the matter of assessing how good at fighting you are and how experienced your dragon is. His mouth quirked in a slight smile. Considering that dragon is a bit smaller than Melee, I imagine he's only gotten into a couple of scrapes. Catastrophe bared his teeth at the sellsword. I faced the Black Terror in combat and held my own, he snarled. Melee's raised her head and bared her teeth in approval. Really? She asked, clearly intrigued. That's impressive. Eyebrows rising, the sellsword gave Darian and his dragon an appraising look. Well, that's bloody interesting. I can't say that I've heard that one before. If Melees can't smell a lie, then it has to be true. He chewed on his bottom lip thoughtfully. All right, normally dragons that tussle with that old monster don't live to tell the tale. Well, you're just going to have to start with standard pay since you're just joining up to us. But you got a good story, but I'll have to see how skilled you are. Casually extended his hand. My name is David. It's a pleasure to induct you into the Sons of the Silver Dragon. And Darian. Glad to meet you. Darian took the oldest man and shook it. And your woman? Darian nodded. David nodded to Kayla. She joining us too? If so, what can she do? I'm an archer and a spearwoman. Kayla said calmly, stroking her long hilted sword and nodding to the bow on Catastroph's back. Call your target if you want to test me. David looked her over, focusing primarily on her slightly pointed ears. Very well, he agreed. Well, if you're what you appear to be, I can assume you're rather skilled with those weapons. So do you happen to have a tent that we could buy? Darian pushed his hand to his pocket and then pulled up a couple of gold crowns. Yeah, we probably have a spare somewhere, David remarked. Come on, you'll bunk together, that's fine. Women are couples who live and work together. Hey, take care of your laundry is your own damn business, but usually it's the lady that's responsible for that. Casually, he raised his hands before all stalled to any comments. Like I said, it's your own sodding problem to deal with. Darian and Kayla exchanged a speculative look. Well, here we go, Darian shrugged. Kayla blew out her cheeks slightly, then nodded. Well, it's better than nothing. And that's the end.
I liked it. I liked the intrigue.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you notice the name of the silver dragon? She's from the Dragonstrife. She's actually that little girl's dragon.
Oh.
This guy is so what happened was she lost her memory and never recovered it and just had lived out her days in the south. David is actually her descendant.
Ah.
Cool.
Yep.
Nice.
And that dragon has just been staying there for several centuries, growing bigger and bigger.
What language do dragons speak, if I may ask?
Normal human language. I decided not to it doesn't make sense for I decided to kind of go with a more unified language for this place. The dragons kind of just speak regular common tongue. They don't really have their own language.
Yeah, it's convenient for fiction to have one language.
Yeah. Yeah, admittedly, it doesn't make sense, realistically, because, you just go, only, a few countries, and, geographical distance will create different languages. But I just thought it would be more, convenient.
Yeah, that's how Tolkien and Martin both, well, Martin definitely, and Tolkien also mainly handled it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what is dragon phonology like? Do they have the same mouth geometry as we do? Do they have the same alveolar ridges? They have, are they capable of making the same sounds? Are there sounds that a dragon can make that humans can't?
Oh, spoken
Do
like a
they-
conlanger.
Some of our consonants are aspirated or voiced or unvoiced. Does dragons' fire breath somehow feature into their speech somehow?
Oh, that would be really cool.
Very
Yes.
interesting.
Hmm.
I think that with this, the only other like new sounds that I gave my dragons are when they laugh, they make a ruck sound, or they rumble or purr. Usually is kind of how like I wrote them in terms of like unique sounds that they make, like in approximation of what humans would call a thing. And sometimes they have musical voices. Sometimes they like have deeper, more guttural voices. Kind of depends. Like Catastrophe as I describe Catastrophe as having a slightly musical baritone voice.
Is it sort of like a psychic thing? Do they project their voice inside the person's head?
No, they're like Smaug. They actually talk. And part of it is like they're actually born of the dragons are actually born of the gods. So they're like the offspring that these two ancient creatures created, Lilith and Echidna.
Cool.
And one of the one was an ice goddess, the other was a fire goddess, and both sired kids, though Echidna was locked away, and the descendant and Lilith's descendants are kind of were shunted to the side and put in this little kingdom. And basically what she's been trying to do for most of her existence is try to put her descendants on the throne. And by the end of book 2, she succeeds. And it's kind of like, and it kind of just explains like, okay. So they're descended, so dragons and these particular humans are related. And as more of like the blood, like their descendants intermarry with other people, like more people become dragon riders. Though there are people that are able to earn a dragon's respect and claim them as their rider, but it's a lot easier if they are like related to them even distantly. And
So
part of the
there's
thing
a
that marks
genetic aspect to it.
slightly, yes.
Yeah. Preston
what's up?
Jacobs' whole theory about that.
Yes. And I agree with a lot of it. For instance, like the fact that like it seems like they are very Y chromosome oriented. How like it seems as though whenever like a dragon hatching boom happens, it's related to a fertile woman.
Yes. But then he thinks dragon riding is also genetic, which I'm not so sure about.
Well, I think like I think it's both, since it seems like only like people with Valyrian blood are able to do dragon riding. But anyway, that's all we have planned for today. It was a nice short stream. Thank you all for coming. I've greatly appreciated you guys coming on and reading your work.
Thank you.
All of your anybody want to pimp their work?
I'll go first. Sure. I have. There is, of course, my steampunk adventure novel, The Gates of Dawn. And the second book is well on the way, and you can actually watch me write in real time on my secret Discord server from my Patreon. So that's fun.
Okay, it looks like Neph is muted for some reason. Okay.
All this buggered.
Sorry, I was having a bit of trouble with my computer.
Oh, yes, I know that feeling.
I had a little bit of trouble with the fireplace.
Yes.
Hmm,
The Hellfire Place.
indeed.
Okay,
I love that movie. That movie's so awesome.
Yeah.
so the parody I read from is actually available on the web. I could put the link in. I could put the link in the comments. It's sort of long because it's been mirrored. The website doesn't exist anymore, but it's been mirrored, so it's still available on the web. So that's available on the web. My novel is not available on the web, the serious novel. I'm still working on it.
Okay.
And there's another website too that I mentioned earlier. The
Well,
one with
well, I
the
made
bizarre
sure to-
Tolkien cult. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, I made sure, and Carl, you can find Carl's work in the description, and if Count Valerian wants to give me the link, I will put it in the description below, as well, so that anybody can take a look at it and not worry about having it be lost in the comments. I don't know how much traction this is, since honestly, like, it seems as though like Halloween is sending people away, even though it's quarantine. But either way,
That makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know what they're up to. Maybe they're actually vampires and are drinking people's blood, and that's why they can't come here. They're too busy. Well, anyway.
either way, thank you all for coming. And I have to say one last thing.
Holy shit. Okay, we're going.